It's going to sound like maybe I'm making a bad decision by sharing this with you, and you're going to go, the title of that's really not cool, Michelle, because why would we want that? But the title of her TED Talk is My Year of Saying Yes to Everything. Now, here's the thing. I don't want you saying yes to everything this year. So let's be clear from the very front. I don't want you adding things. That's not the whole point. But if you've not seen that particular TED Talk, Guy's going to put it in the chat, a link to it. This woman, who is an incredible, amazing individual when it comes to the world of television and the shows that she's written, Grey's Anatomy and how I can't think of the other two right now off the top of my head, but I know I've seen them. Scandal, I think, was one of them. Anyways, she found herself really caught up in work because she's a workaholic. And then one day her daughter says to her, Mom, won't you just play with me? And so this video becomes about how she says yes for a year to everything. And what it does is it helped her find her hum and what matters to her. And I think for me, what resonated as I was watching the video with this school year is it's going to be really imperative to find what makes me hum, because otherwise I'll find myself taking on things that aren't mine because I think I should help with it or somebody's going to need help. And creating boundaries this year has been so important. Like, I'm not checking emails after 4. I'm not checking emails on the weekends. I'm not doing any grading on the weekends. And I've made it really clear to people that I'm doing this. And it's actually been met in a really positive way. And if I do end up sending an email, I get an email back that says, you said you weren't going to do this. So I wanted to suggest that particular video because if you have the chance to watch it or to show it to your kids, I think for the kids, it's one of those opportunities of like, what if I don't say no? What if we say yes to everything we want to do this year? What if we have to redo everything as we've thought about it? Because we do. But what if we say yes to things? What if we say, yeah, we can make that happen? So it was just an interesting piece as I was thinking about, we want to talk about the how of what we're doing. So this to me, and I'm gonna bump off of this screen, so you might want to take a picture of it so that you have the 3 questions. I'm not even sure I wrote down the 3 questions, so I'm gonna take a picture of myself. Is we're gonna talk about these things because I think it's important to really think about how am I doing this? What am I doing? And we're all doing different things, but maybe we've got some ideas or shortcuts, even as something as simple as what program are you using with your school, or secondary versus, or middle school versus high school, et cetera, et cetera. So that makes sense? Okay. And hopefully people, I mean, again, this is about sharing. This is about saying, this is what I'm doing and how can we get these ideas from each other? Because part of what we want these WACA Wednesdays to be, it's not only finding some programming that we can all do within our schools. Like, so for example, yesterday, remember we saw Jennifer Powers at WACA last March? Yesterday, she did a webinar and I went to the webinar and Guy went to the webinar, and she has this book that she wanted to talk about. And I'm not saying I want to invite Jennifer to a WACA Wednesday, but it's a resource, right? It's another resource. And so how can we continue to utilize these resources and these programs that we can bring into our schools for kids that isn't just for us, but for them as well. So I guess for me, really, the next step is to just kind of see what people want to discuss with the first question. How am I teaching? So for me, what I would say is I'm learning how to turn my old PowerPoints into Microsoft Office PowerPoints, because Microsoft Office PowerPoints are easier to link and share on my Canvas learning platform. That's not something I had ever done before. And then I find out that my Canvas platform, where I put their assignments, links directly to Gradebook and to Skyward. So then I'm learning how to do that. So that kind of the structure piece of things, I'm just curious maybe what other people are doing that's new and different, just to kind of talk about it if you want to. Maybe?
Maybe.
I will.
Well, okay, I'll go.
Well.
Go ahead.
Let's have Stephanie talk first.
Oh, all right. So our school is a Microsoft Teams school, and I've never really used it. So I loaded all my stuff, renamed things, put videos in, and then today I got an email from a leadership student who's like, I'm trying to do the assignment, our team isn't there. So we found out today the hard way that if the counseling department made a change in Skyward, it erased everything. So not a happy camper today. So I'm teaching with new technology and finding that it can be even extra stressful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a how of a platform situation. Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Was it David that was going to share?
I can, yeah. I think for me, we're a Google district, so a lot of stuff we do is through Google, but I wasn't going to share necessarily about the platforms, but mostly I think it's crucial that we are connecting with our students. And I know we talked about that the last time, but so I was trying to think of how else can I connect with them, because we only have live classes certain times. And so what I've been doing is we have a daily check-in. And if a student tells me that they're kind of a 1 or a 2 out of a scale of 5, what I've been doing is sending them kind of a personalized Screencastify video, just talking to them about it and just letting them know that I see them and I hear them and I'm sorry of whatever they're going through. And then I send it to them and their family, so that it's, instead of me sending that same thing in an email, they at least get to see my face. They get to hear my voice. And same thing with notes that we're doing online. Instead of me typing comments, I've been doing voice notes, so they get to hear me saying it instead of just read the words. So I think things like that are going to help us with those connection pieces, so that students feel more connected to us and the school at the same time.
I love the idea that they hear you and see you. I think I hadn't thought about that part of it, that's a huge piece that they're missing. So thanks for sharing that. How else? Maybe if we go to the place of, maybe start thinking about how are we also as we get more and more used to this technology. I know I open once a week, I have a space where they can come for lunch. So they can bring a friend. It's the ASB kids, it's my 101 kids, but come for lunch. And we eat lunch together or passing. We had a teacher today I thought was really interesting. She's told her kids, don't come until class starts. Take the 10-minute break. Mm-hmm. Which hadn't really thought about that, right? Like, as the kids are talking more and more, and I don't know if you're having these conversations, I'm assuming that it's the same for kids around, but they aren't getting a break from the computer. And I know I'm zoomed out. So when I think about them having a break, it's like, how can I start to encourage them to have more? And I think that's what I've started incorporating more this week. How can you get away from the computer? What are you doing for self-care? How can I help you get away from the computer? How can I help you set boundaries? I did a lesson today on boundaries. How and what does that look like? Because setting boundaries can be really hard. How else are people, maybe it's curriculum wise, maybe it's structure wise, maybe if it's even something as simple as, what does your week look like? How are you, because to me, structure is not my strength. So how are people laying out their weeks? How are they laying out their lessons? I'm just curious.
Well, we have 1 hour a week per class. And then we have these touch points, these 20 to 25 minute touch points every single day for every class. And Wednesdays are crazy because we have advisory. And so those touch point times are 15 minutes. So by the time everybody gets in, it's time to leave, but they want to work with their groups. And I'm like, no, see you tomorrow. Just want to make sure you're alive and doing well. I think one of the big challenges for me is my freshmen and sophomores do not want to show their faces. They don't want to talk. So I'm trying to watch for facial cues and watch the Zoom, and the chat, and respond to the private chats, but then respond to the whole group. And so it's a full-time job trying to just, and then sometimes I think that I'm closing the breakout rooms and I've just shut off the whole Zoom call at once. And I'm like, oops, sorry. So I have been not being more apologetic, but owning the fact that, like, hey, I'm real and I'm in this struggle with you guys. So please be patient with me because I'm going to screw up. And so are you. So we'll do it together.
Are you finding that they're responding in a really positive way to that mindset, that vulnerability?
My upper level classes are, my juniors and seniors, even my freshmen and sophomores, they're so grade oriented right now. And we've had some days when Google and Schoology have not synced with PowerSchool. Well, Google doesn't, but when Schoology hasn't. And so PowerSchool has all these kids failing, but in Schoology they're fine. And so I'll wake up sometimes, I just don't even like to look at my phone in the morning because I'll wake up to 40 to 60 emails. Most of them are, oh my gosh, I can't get in, my internet's down, or I have an F in your class, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go through everything I just went through yesterday to double check to make sure things are connected. And then I just tell them, I'm sorry, there's going to be times I am watching your grades very closely. I'll let you know if there's a problem, but be patient while we're trying to learn how to sync everything. And of course, all this smoke and, everything isn't helping with, internet and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a lot of being honest with kids about where I am as their instructor and like, hey, I'm going to need your patience and help, to get through this also.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
How many others are struggling with kids adjusting to the grading situations and how that's shifted? Has anybody had to or chosen to adapt any of their grading because of this? Timelines, due dates?
We haven't put a lot of grades in yet, but on Friday, one of my kids asked me, and I took it so personally, I thought they were totally making a dig at the fact that I hadn't put anything in the grade book yet. And so they were like, when are teachers going to start putting grades in the grade book? And I was like, listen, give a girl a break. Like, we just got through all this stuff. And I reacted, and they were like, no, none of my teachers have done it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Totally super personal. So that's where I'm at with grades.
That's fair. And I like that that you were willing to share that you took it personal, because I think so much of this we're having to adjust how much we take personal, right? Because the reality is everything's so different. So the things that I used to take so much personally beforehand, I'm like, I kind of don't know that that's as personal anymore, right? Or I'm taking more things personally. I don't know. So it's an interesting mindset too. Anyone else having to adjust how they're teaching? Maybe it was just me, and that's why I chose the theme, because I've had to turn everything upside down, and it's been hard, taking longer.
I know, sorry, I'm talking again, but we have, I have a lot of classes that have special education students in it, and I have a special ed background, so I'm, familiar with IEPs and modifications and that kind of stuff. And I've started getting the emails from the parents that are like, my kid is in your first period class and this is just not working. The Zooms, the links, the attach this, go here, do that. What can you do? And I'm like, I got an answer for you. I'll print everything out, hard copy. You swing by the school. I'll meet you out front and bring it to you. When your kid's done, bring it back. And so, but I also, right now, this is my trimester to teach my, we have an LAC leadership class. So I have all the self-contained kids in leadership. They almost have 100% attendance every day. Cameras are on, they're talking, they're taking surveys, they want to be part of stuff. Tomorrow we're doing our first project together, and they voted today. And so they're super engaged. So I'm not sure, maybe it's because they're so, maybe they don't understand the pressure like the resource room kids do. And
That's
so
fair.
the resource room kids are really starting to struggle.
Yeah. How many, I've had kids say that the homework's intense. Are you guys hearing that at all?
Yeah, for some.
Yeah. So what are you finding? I'm just curious. I'm trying to come up with some thought processes here. What are we finding as far as what are the kids preferring in class? Are they preferring breakout rooms? Are they preferring discussion? Have you had any of that?
Hey, Michelle, I just put in the chat, kind of going back to your previous topic of different ways that we're teaching.
Oh, yeah. Do it.
Yeah, I found this cool resource called slidesmania.com. It's free. And I found really great choice boards, and this one just came out. This is fantastic that this woman made, and they're giving them all away for free. And it's different ways to have the format kind of be a pathway for students to walk through in different projects and things like that. And I found just fun and interesting graphics there that people have made. So that's one way that I'm trying to do it a little bit differently. And also I'm doing something I learned from Reimagine, if anyone got to take that class, distance learning class from Jeff Utek, doing hyperdocs. So this is the whole thing with hyperdocs, where you have different questions and a different process they're going through and they're reflecting. And so if you just search for hyperdocs, there's lots of different things on that. And it's seemed like for me, for leadership class, it's been lending itself to doing these different kind of like flip books that they make with a Google slide that I found from Slidesmania, or a hyperdoc as they're going through like a lesson on leadership. So those are two things that I've kind of changed my teaching in that way. And I think they've been very interactive, though today, you know, they keep saying, I need access. And I'm like, well, I made it. So it says, make a copy. And, you know, so that's the whole thing I'm trying to teach them is make a copy of it. Don't request access, because then everyone's going to be editing it, or, you know, so that all that kind of stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there other resources? That's a really good point. Are there other resources that people are using? Things that they have found that's working?
One thing that I've found at our school is that other teachers have become great resources. We are inundated by all of these different platforms that we're having to use. I'm an athletics and an activities coordinator, so on both fronts, we are being asked to spend a lot of time learning new platforms to get information out in a variety of ways. And every time I hear about, oh, here's this great new idea and here's this, it kind of leaves a pit in my stomach. But I'm finding our staff is kind of filling the void where you've got questions, and we've never been a staff like that before. So it's been really nice because we are kind of all in this together.
I think that what's interesting, thank you for sharing that. What's interesting about staff is that we are mostly autonomous, and right now we can't be. Right now we're needing to be connected more. We're needing to rely on each other. I had a staff member the other day share Edpuzzle, and I haven't gone in there. David, you're nodding your head. Can you explain Edpuzzle a little to the group? Because I haven't dove into it, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so Edpuzzle is a program that essentially uses videos, and you can incorporate your own video. You can take something from YouTube or something like that, put it into Edpuzzle, and then at different points of the video, you can force the video to stop, and the students have to answer a question before the video will continue to play. And if they weren't paying attention, they can go back and rewatch that section and then get to that video. And then get to that question again. So it's a way that, so instead of showing a video and then say, hey, answer these questions, it incorporates them right away. And it does integrate with Google Classroom really well, which, like I said, we're a Google school, but you don't have to be in Google to be able to do that. We use Flipgrid a lot as well. Flipgrid is great for student voice instead of them typing. Susie, we did a Jeff Utek training as well about design learning. And so we've been trying to focus on a lot of ways of how can we have students respond in a way that they feel most comfortable responding. And so instead of just saying, hey, you have this paragraph to write an answer to this question, it's like maybe they can do a Flipgrid video of just explaining their answer. You can see their thinking live. Maybe it's you can represent yours creatively, artistically, and then take a picture and upload that. And so it's a lot of choice. And so that's what we've been doing with our assignments is virtually there's so many different tools we can use. How can we provide choice for students to be able to respond in a way that fits with their style most?
Hey, Michelle and Guy, I found this incredible choice board. I wonder if I could share my screen. Is that okay to do?
Of course.
I don't know if I have power. Oh, I think maybe I do.
I think you do. You should. Everybody should be able to. It just one person at a time.
Okay, so let me see if I can find it really fast, because I was looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is incredible.
I love the
And-
idea of people sharing things and saying, here, try this, try this, try this.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, I put in remote teaching, lesson ideas.
Could you come organize my files for me, by the way?
Well,
I
we'll
could
see.
use that.
We'll see if I can find what I was actually looking for. Okay, show what you know, distance learning choice board. This lady made this thing and it's incredible. So let me hit presents. So this is all the different ways she's made this choice board. So if you want to do build it, every single one of these is a slide that shows how to do this. Google Apps. So let's say I'm going to say, I want to do Flipgrid. So you click on Flipgrid. She has 4 videos that show you how to do Flipgrid. And then you put what your idea is here, and you click back to the clipboard to go, oh, no, I don't want to do Flipgrid. I want to do explain everything. Okay, this is how you do explain everything. And then you go back. So every single one of these are like a tutorial of how to do these different ways for kids to show their learning. I thought, wow, this was so much work. And she has these tutorials built into each one of these. So that was from Slides Mania. That was a free one from Slides Mania.
Can you put the link in the chat?
Yeah, and I'll put it in the notes, or send me info to put in the notes for it.
For that specific one?
Or, yeah, we'll talk about Slide Mania and then I'll put that in that.
Okay, yeah. I am on their site to get an email every time they have new one, and that one just came up on Friday. I had to actually go to school to download it because it's such a huge file. But I thought, wow, this is the most incredible choice board. She said, don't give them every choice at once. It's too many.
Yeah.
And there's a way to lock it down to say, okay, like these 2 categories would be a great choice board for this. But I saw that and I was like, that was incredible.
And what a good tool to share with your staff too, because staff are at all different levels with technology, right? And some, like I'm not skilled in it, whereas I have others that know how to knock it out of the park. So going back to what was said earlier about how our staff has resources, that's an amazing resource. What other resources are people using that they might want to throw out there right now to us all? Anything?
I just threw out their Jamboard and stuff. That was something that was shared last night in another Zoom with me and stuff. And I just thought it was a great idea to get kids to be able to post ideas because they can post it in little sticky notes and stuff. There is a limit to how many times or how many kids can participate. So I'm not sure on that. So, but Jamboard is something that maybe you can get kids to participate or comment where they wouldn't want to do it normally.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the more we can do to help each other and other stuff. Any other ideas?
This week I had the kids, they put together a slideshow about a character trait that they wanted to, and then they took their character word and they put it into Padlet, and they wrote down what the word was and why they thought it was important for a leader to have that trait. And then their assignment the next day was to go into Padlet, look at all the posts, react to at least 3 of them, and then they came back and they talked about which strength was their strongest, which one they thought they should work on, and which 3 they thought good leaders should have, and why. And so they were able to hear or look at what other people had done to get ideas. And then I put them in breakout rooms and they shared parts of their presentations with each other. So they were able to talk a little bit. But Padlet, I think there is a limit unless you pay for a bigger, more posts, but you can archive one and then bring up another one. So I always have 3 going and I just erase it all and then I can start it over again for the next class. So that's one that I've used a couple times.
That's a good tool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning so much. I know, and part of it, you got to have time to look at things too, but it sounds like these are some really good resources.
One other thing I tried this week was doing a poll on Zoom. And so to start up my class, I did a poll of, would you rather be able to breathe underwater or fly? And so my sixth graders are just, on the poll, and they can see the results too, right there within Zoom. And it was pretty easy to do. I didn't know if it'd be too complicated, but you just add a poll at the bottom of your meeting.
That's awesome. What's great about right now is we can try things and fail, and it's expected. Like, of course that didn't work, versus the perfectionism I think a lot of us have in our classrooms, and wanting to be perfect and understanding that right now nobody's perfect. And so how can we all fail? Let's all fail together, shall we, to some extent?
Well, and at times, don't you get to a point where a kid will intercede and go, if you just touch this, this, and this, we'll be able to do this. So they're being able to use some of their strengths that we don't always allow them to do in a normal classroom, but now we need their help more than ever.
Yeah, that's been an interesting shift too.
That's where I came from.
You're on mute. That's their favorite one. Whenever I go back and forth from breakout rooms and I start talking and they're like, you're on mute, we can't hear you. So that's their favorite one right now.
The thing that I did when I made the choice to become a virtual teacher, ahead of the curve, I walked into a situation where I had a lot of students who they've been doing virtual school for a long time. And there's that sense of whether you sit in it and be vulnerable and be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Or do you like embrace that and be like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. And I have found that in that introduction to virtual teaching, that I had a lot of students who had skill and knowledge about how things work. So when I would be like, oh, I need to figure out how to share this document in Blackboard, and they would go, I'd get a little chat thing, or they would say, and it'd be like, oh, okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And they're very nuanced in what they do. And once you start to allow them to have that voice and you validate them, then they're bought in. It's intriguing to me because my value as a teacher was largely based on the relationships I built with my students in the traditional classroom. That's where I would go, yeah, I had a successful year because of those relationships. And having done virtual teaching, there's relationships that I build there that are stronger than some of them that I ever had in the classroom, because I'm connecting with kids who I would not have connected with, and I'm giving them an opportunity, because I'm always going to connect with the kids I would have connected with anyway. They're going to put themselves there to do the things that they're going to do. But there's this whole segment within the classroom that feel more at ease and participating and doing things like that. So I would just tell you, lean into the I don't know how this works, and be willing to share that honestly. And a lot of the kids are going to go, oh, and they see that, and then they feel like, well, I don't know what I'm doing either, and my teacher doesn't, so I feel more like safe in this classroom.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think more and more teachers are seeing the vulnerability. It makes me think of a question that was asked yesterday in turning the flip to a positive when it comes to this virtual and this remote. What are some benefits that we're seeing in our teaching from having to move to remote? Because we could all run the litany of the negative, but I'm curious as to what I know. I have noticed some benefits that have been fascinating to me as far as their processes of thinking, and it's not the grief part of it or the sadness, it's the actual thought processes. So I'm wondering what other benefits people might be noticing from this remote learning experience.
Well, I can jump in there. So I think I don't know if I am correct in this, but I think Susie and I might be the only middle school people. I think everybody else is either, sneeze. Yeah. Yes, the three of us holding it down. But I think one of the things with us is, I teach sixth grade. So when they come to me, they're still very elementary, right? They're still babies. And so for me, it's like, how much are the kiddos willing, able, to discuss how they're feeling, what's going on in their mind during all of these things. And so when I taught high school, it was really easy to have those conversations. They were able to verbalize what's going on with them a lot better. With these kids, you get a lot of the same answers: mad, sad, happy, the same basic emotions. And what we've been doing is to incorporate social emotional learning into daily practice in our classrooms, and to talk about emotions and say, look, I can be sad about two different things. I was sad when the beef jerky was gone from the bag, but I was also sad when I was 10 and my grandfather passed away. And I can describe those using the same word, but the level's different, right? And so what other vocabulary can I use to describe that situation and then help them in that journey? So we've been going over that a lot, because not only are we in this virtual world, we're in the pandemic. And I don't know about you all, but our smoke is awful. It's just terrible. Like, my family in our house has been getting headaches and stuff. We have a brand new house, but it's like working overdrive trying to keep all that stuff out. And I think there's a lot going on. And so for me, it's almost like you look at Bloom's taxonomy, and it's like, look, they can't get to anything higher, or Maslow's, hierarchy of needs. They can't get to anything unless their basic needs are met. And right now, their basic need is they need somebody to understand their situation. They need somebody to be able to value them in what they're feeling. And so I think that's what we've been focusing a lot on, is to where are they getting valued? And then how are we hearing them and getting their voice? So that's what I've just been experiencing.
Thank you. That's an awesome one. And so true and so needed. What's another benefit? Has anybody else experienced a benefit from this experience?
I think we've talked a lot about it, right? But it's definitely getting out of the comfort zone, right? Like, I mean, there's so much of that. Like, I always do a little lesson on growth mindset. And it's great because I did the lesson last week, and then today I ended up finishing one of my physics classes from my cell phone because my computer shut down and I had to log back in. So I'm sitting in there on my phone, hey guys, I'm back. Thanks for sticking around. I tried something that didn't work, computer blew up, but how are we going to respond? And so it's real life applications to like you said, being vulnerable and growth mindset, and hey, let's try it and go. And I think in real time, having those discussions and kids seeing that when we're usually just so in control and so comfortable. We've kind of already talked about, but it's helping those relationships and kids to kind of see that application.
I love that idea of application. I hadn't thought about that. That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Benefits?
Well, I think there's a flexibility and a creativity that you can develop during this experience that I don't think, at least I would not have probably developed in the classroom, in the building, I guess. Being able to have conversations, being able to, the kids, you put them in breakout rooms. Do you need your breakout room today? No. Here's a list of how to contact each other, work it out. They're learning some independence. They're learning some responsibility. I have one group that they say, no, we don't need to be in breakout room. We've already got some kind of a remind app that they go back and forth, and they're planning stuff and getting their work done in their own time. I have kids that are on Zoom in the back seat of their car because their parents are like, hey, the kids don't have to go to school. Let's go to Vegas for the weekend. I had a girl that's coming back from Vegas today. She's like, I probably won't get the assignment done till late tonight because I don't really, have internet in the car. And so I think that embracing that creativity and that flexibility, it looks different and it's a little scary to, kind of turn them loose on some of that. But I think it's also teaching them to kind of step up and own some of this that maybe they wouldn't have done earlier.
Yeah, for a generation that wants face-to-face at the same time, they are so good at being flexible. They're so good at being creative and doing things on their time because that's what they're used to, right? What other benefits are out there or opportunities that you found?
Well, I'll speak to that a little bit. I think one of the things that I've noticed is that we we tend to assume that these kids are tech savvy because they're on their phone so much. And the reality is if we were asking them to do a Instagram or a Snapchat, yes, but when we get into some of the other things that we just assume they can do, they can't. So it's kind of forced me to reset where I start teaching, especially with middle school kids, like, okay, we're going to talk about being a self-advocate by using your email effectively, by using your calendar effectively. So it's changed kind of the direction of week 1 and 2, where normally it would be like, we're jumping in, but now we're going to just say, guess what? We're going to pretend nobody knows, and we're going to teach everybody the same way. And then the other piece is, my least favorite part is always communicating with parents, just because even when you have good intentions, sometimes it's misread or whatever. So you end up getting blowback that's not positive. I've been more intentional with that, and the reception when I say, we are working on your kids just being a self-advocate, they're like, thank you, so, because they just see them on their device and assume, oh, they're going to be a computer programmer. And the reality is they can press start and they can press send, and that's about the extent of their savviness. So it's kind of been a fun, eye-opening experience, and just kind of intentional, change how intentional I am in certain parts of my teaching.
It's awesome. Yeah, I think we assume that they can do more when really all they're doing is watching YouTube and videos and memes and all those things. When it comes down to actual technology itself, it's a different beast.
Yeah.
Difference of a generation.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody seen it's a tangent, it's a bird walk, 'cause that's what I do. Has anybody seen the Paul Rudd ad for millennials to get them to wear their masks?
It's fantastic.
Oh, if you've not, I need you to do that this evening. It's hilarious. He acts like he's a millennial to get them to wear their masks. It's just a total bird walk that you don't even need to put in the minutes, Tammy, but it's delightful.
It's worth watching.
It's totally worth it. I was laughing out loud last night. But I also think Paul Rudd's pretty brilliant. So
he is funny.
That was a bird walk. Sorry. Welcome to Teaching with Michelle Munson.
Worth it.
All right. Anything else positive for the good of the group there with those pieces?
So I'm going to share this other point, and this is what I've told people when they've asked like my opinion, because apparently people go, well, you're the expert guy. You've been doing this for a long time. But here's the thing. This is what my takeaway from this whole process is that I'm looking at, as I have conversations with colleagues who are now teaching in the virtual world, and I challenge people to look at it this way. What are you doing in the virtual world that would be something you go, you know what, I like that. And this is kind of a cool thing. And can I incorporate that into my teaching when I'm not having to be virtual? Is there something that you can do that you can be like, oh, I liked the way that I was able to connect with the kids doing these videos, or embedding some stuff, and maybe you weren't a Google Classroom person because you were all like in your classroom itself, and now you're like, oh, I'm putting these lessons in, and it's like it's linking to things, and you're feeling more confident in that. What's your opportunity looking forward? Because I'm optimistic that not all of you are going to continue to be like me and be virtual teachers. So how or what are there nuggets of things out there that you go, that's something that I would like to incorporate in teaching in the future?
I have one for you, Guy, because so much of students' interaction with technology is to find their own entertainment, right? They go onto a computer to go onto YouTube, or they're watching a movie, or they're playing a game or something. And so I realized, like, to get them to engage, we might need to be a little bit more entertaining from time to time. And so I got this, and it is an explorer outfit, so that when I do my social studies lessons, I have created a British persona. So I will dress up as this and make my videos. I am Sir Benedict Churchill III. And it's just a way to, right, to get them to engage. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this person going to do next? Try to keep their attention long enough to maybe get some nuggets of information.
I'm going to need you to do a 50-minute at WACA in said outfit.
I think you're on something. I think
All
you're
right.
on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll practice my British accent.
Yep. That's great. I think that's a great idea.
What's your name again, Dave?
Sir Benedict Churchill III.
There we go. Love it.
You know what? Just on back to a serious note, after I show you a costume I bought, you should have seen my wife's face when she saw that I purchased that.
You were being serious about it. You're going to wear it. It's a real thing.
Absolutely. I'm not joking about that, but
No.
I missed, I think we have like our AWSL reps here, and just like, I miss our camp stuff a lot. Like just being a part of camp staff and seeing the other TCs and RCs and stuff was a huge part. And, and I'd only done it for 2 years. I can't imagine being someone who's done it for, decades and not having that opportunity. So that's something I hugely missed. And just trying to reach out with James and communicate with James. And Joe, I sent you a text message about the Beatles.
I'm thinking about that, Michelle. I think one thing like with community is this collaboration that I think was mentioned earlier. I think Beth was talking about that, how her staff is becoming more collaborative. Ours is too, for sure. And I see that also as WACA as an organization. I mean, just this collaboration. And shout out to Area 6. I see we are well represented here. So wave if you're from Area 6. Hello, I see you there. And Tina has scheduled our happy hour for next week. So we're doing something just with our area too. And that's been a really fun aspect of this, even though we can't be in person, but it's so convenient too. So it doesn't take as much time. Like, let's drive to Sunnyside where Tina is, but we can all get on the Zoom and have a happy hour and share ideas and kind of go together. So I think that's been a really huge benefit of this time.
I agree. I know for me, putting my stuff, my lessons and all of that, and using this virtual platform has been pretty changing. Like it's taking time, but the convenience of it and how the kids can access it differently and the answering of different questions. Like I've been resistant. I'm a little archaic and I like the pen and paper and I like the conversations and I like those things, but I'm realizing the importance of meeting them. If these are going to be generations that do go so into technology, I've got to be better about meeting them where they are. And it's actually not as hard. I'm not as resistant as I once was because it's actually not as hard as I thought it was. Like I love the idea of a choice board. I hadn't thought about that. I love the idea of Ed Puzzle. Finding the time to do it's a different story, but moving to technology is, I think, a good thing.
The good thing is there are a lot of videos pre-made and you can copy them and use them as your own, right? So it's like not reinventing the wheel. Like Coley taught me to use the base model, borrow and steal everything.
Oh, I don't know that anything in my career is not borrowed or stolen or has not been borrowed or stolen or shared. Or, I mean, that's part of the conference, right? Oh, what did you do? So I think there's some truth to that. And I think here's the thing, I think our other staff members are starting to realize more and more the sense of community that comes so naturally to us building. I have done a couple of lessons with my staff, sharing activities with them that they can do in 5 or 10 minutes to build. And someone said they used one last night at curriculum night. They did throw this one out or whatever it is, or what doesn't belong. And they said they used that with parents and the parents were engaging. The parents were turning on the screens and playing along. So I think for a lot of our colleagues that don't live in this wheelhouse, it's been really eye-opening to them, and how we can play a role with that has been kind of a game changer in some of our buildings, and being able to almost validate our jobs more. Right? Like, I know this is the wheelhouse that you're uncomfortable with, but I can help you navigate it, which is just building more connection, right? So if people aren't doing that, that's another thing too. So, well, in the remaining time, because we only have a few minutes left, I was hoping to hear how people are self-caring or setting boundaries. Like I said, I don't check email after 4 p.m. I try not to be on my computer unless I'm working on my doctoral program after 4 p.m. It's not really working as well as it could in the beginning of weeks here, but I'm trying. And the weekends. And then I have a dance party in between classes. So those are my 2 things when it comes to boundary and self-care. I'm wondering what else people are doing and making sure that they are, because that's important. You're all dance partying? Is that it? There's no new ideas because everyone's having dance parties? I hear you. Okay.
I just sometimes go outside and just sit, not now, of course, but hopefully after Friday I can start again and just breathe, watch the llamas, read something that's not school related at all. I usually end up taking at least a 45-minute nap. Then I'm ready to go again for the rest of the evening. So just enjoying things that I don't know if I necessarily would enjoy because of all the extra after school things that we usually go through. But now being able to just say it's 4 o'clock or it's 4:30, shutting things down and then going to another room and doing something, you know, enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's so important.
Well, and I don't know if my thing would be considered self-care or self-insanity. But the week before school started, I adopted a second cat named Gus. And my other cat doesn't really approve yet. So now I have this little kitten.
Sweet.
Is very squirmy. I call him the menace. And it's fun, but definitely kind of curbing that line of like, oh, fun cuddles, but also you're a nut job. Why did you adopt a cat the week of all the in-services before school started? So, you know.
Yeah. I think that's self-care. I'll give you a self-care check because you're taking care of something else that's giving you happiness.
Yes, and today was a big day. They spent more than 10 minutes in the same room and there wasn't a lot of growling. So
I say the same thing about my 2 daughters though. So
fair, totally fair.
Awesome.
On that line, we got a pandemic puppy who has never been alone for the last 7 months. So someday the cold, hard reality of the world will enter his mind. But I'm in the upstairs, so he's a stealer. He's a cattle dog. So he borrows things during the day. So I can sit up here and see what he's borrowing and decide if I need to get up to get the thing he's borrowed or not. But then that gives me a stretch break too. So, and then take him for walks. So it's been it's definitely been just a good distraction.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's good. Well, hopefully you're taking care of yourselves. I know that there's some flips to this, and I think we're going to start to get into some more specific themes as we're talking. I met with my district today to talk about clubs. So to me, maybe the next ones we talk about clubs and we start to talk about those activities and how we're managing those within our school. So it's something a little bit more concrete. I wanted people to be able to settle into their school year, but I didn't want to lose the steam of WACA Wednesdays because I think they're vital for people for a connection piece. And like Susie was saying, it's bringing people together and having the conversations we need to have. So I think the next one will most likely be something on clubs and activities, and then we'll go from there. I think I could see us having area rep meetings and things. So be prepared for more good stuff from WACA Wednesdays. I love that you're all here, and I appreciate it. And go un-Zoom for a little bit if you would like to, or you can stay. I never hang up.
So Greg and Joe, are people starting to sign up for things with AWSL? Your programs, the virtual, the equity conference, the end of the month or the end of next month?
Yeah, we're trying to put together the pieces for this fall. Hopefully y'all got email with a membership form, but just the roster that you can update because I've been updating a lot of things. But it was, and hopefully you got an invite to the portal so you can log on and change your information. If not, just send me an email. We'll figure out what happened. So we send out that. We are working on a number of things. The equity conference is for middle level and high school. It's occurring the 30th and 31st. So a little chunk of the late afternoon on the 30th and then done by noon on Halloween. So they have plenty of time. Not that anybody's going anywhere, but if they want to start bobbing for apples, they can. So we got some speakers. Our student voice group, just the new one just got together. I think we have 35 members this year. They're going to help be the guiding force on that and do a lot of the work. James has reached out to people to, we're looking for workshops, we're looking for breakout sessions, all idea shares. So anything, David, if you need a flashback to camp, we'll definitely take your teaching sessions or your Meet the Pros or all of those, and kids will be able to come and shop around, and those will be open for a couple months so they can get to many of the things that they want, which might help you in your classes as you're trying to remember or generate ideas. You can come back to it.
Okay.
And we're working on a lot of just, we're here to support, we're listening. I know we have a couple of big meetings coming up with high-end government type groups. So EOGOAC is the Equity Commission formulated by law. So we have a presentation coming up next month on that, working with WASDA, the school directors. So I'm always listening, James is always listening, Joe's always listening, so we can feed your information into what school boards need to hear, superintendents, the lawmakers. If you're interested in seeing the work that the equity group did this summer, they created James was the publisher, but it's all in kids' words. And that went out to legislators and senators and already got us three meetings plus some other things. So lots of things to help support you. It's all those things. We're still not bringing in the big cash items, but, we lost camp, but we are able to focus a lot on our mission, equity work, and making this about all students can lead, not just really that small bit. I love more clubs. We're working with, I could go on for days, the groups, but it's really nice to be able to work on your mission throughout this and still create good stuff. We're working with the national elementaries to maybe get our programs national for our elementary programs, since there's not very many of us that do elementary across the country. But if you need anything, let us know. We're there. You can't remember anybody else's email. It's just awsl@awsp.org. It's pretty short. Mine is greg@awsp.org. That's Joe F@awsp.org. So James L. But we're here to help. And your stories about social emotion are really good because we're taking that everywhere we can. Because that's what you do, and you do it well.
Thank you. I love it. All right. That's all I have. Right on time. Welcome to Working with Michelle Munson. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And we'll get something out here in the next couple of weeks. Good night. Go take care of yourselves. Get off the computers. Good night.
All right. I'll get this up here in just a few minutes, and then when we get the notes, I'll put